At my daughter's parent-teacher conference, her teacher looked right at me and said, "We assume her struggles come from a broken home." She said it so casually, like she was reading from a checklist. The principal didn't say anything. He just nodded like he'd heard it all before and didn't need to ask more. I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wasn't sure I could say it without breaking. I was tired, physically, emotionally, and in that moment, deeply humiliated. I sat across from them in my work scrubs, with flour still on my sleeves from my second job, and my phone buzzing in my pocket with missed texts from the sitter. I looked like someone who had dropped the ball, and to them I probably was. They didn't see the nights I stay up with Lena to help her finish her reading, even though my shift starts at 5 a.m. They didn't see us sharing a grilled cheese at the kitchen counter because payday's 2 days away and we've got just enough to stretch. They didn't know I'm still paying off my husband's funeral, or that some nights I cry in the car before I go inside, just so she doesn't see me fall apart. But I sat there, holding it all in, while they sat there judging me for what they thought my daughter was lacking. Then the door opened. Lena walked in with her backpack slung over one shoulder and a big smile on her face. She was holding something close to her chest, like it was too important to let go. She looked at me, then at the principal and her teacher. "Hi," she said softly. "I finished my project. Can I show you?" Before anyone could respond, she was already opening her backpack, and what she pulled out made the room go completely still. The principal leaned forward. The teacher's face changed. And then slowly the principal started to cry. Real tears. Not the polite blink and they're gone kind. I wasn't prepared for it either. Not for what she'd made. Not for how it hit all of us so fast, so deep. In that moment, everything they thought they knew about me, about her, about our home, every assumption shattered. All I could do was sit there and watch as my 8-year-old daughter held the entire room in the palm of her hand. She didn't say it to defend me. She didn't do it to prove a point. She just wanted to show them something she'd made with love. And somehow, that was what finally made them see us for who we really were. Not broken, not lost, not failing, just a mother and a daughter doing our best to build something whole in a world that keeps trying to tear us down. And it all started with what she pulled from that backpack. The school parking lot was nearly empty when I arrived. The sun had already set, and the building cast long shadows over the sidewalk. I sat in my car for a moment, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair was pulled back in a lopsided bun, my scrub top had a small grease stain from my shift at the bakery, and my eyes looked tired. Tired in a way makeup can't fix. I took a breath, grabbed Lena's folder from the passenger seat, and stepped out. The air smelled like burnt leaves and cafeteria food. It reminded me of the fall fairs I used to go to with my husband before the accident. We would win Lena stuffed animals and let her eat way too much cotton candy. That was 3 years ago. Since then, life has felt like one long list of things to do, bills to pay, and moments I didn't have time to fully feel. I walked into the school and followed the hallway toward room 203. My shoes squeaked on the waxed floor. Each step felt heavier than the last. I had been to conferences before, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was the look Miss Klein gave me during drop-off last week when I mentioned I'd be late again picking up Lena. Or maybe it was the note Lena had crumpled in her backpack, something about missing assignments. I knocked gently before walking in. Miss Klein and Mr. Harrow were already seated at the small round table, flipping through a manila folder with Lena's name on it. They both looked up when they saw me. "Hi. I'm sorry I'm late," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Ms. Klein didn't respond right away. She looked at her watch, then back at me. "We appreciate you coming," she said finally. Mr. Harrow gave a tight smile, then gestured for me to sit. I lowered myself into the small chair and placed Lena's folder on the table. My knees barely fit under it. Everything about the room was child-sized, decorated with crayon drawings and laminated posters about kindness and respect. It was cheerful, but it felt cold to me in that moment. Ms. Klein started going through Lena's academic record. She used words like inconsistent participation and difficulty staying engaged. She pointed to a math worksheet with missing answers and a spelling test with a red circle around 2 wrong words. "She's quiet in class, doesn't really raise her hand or talk to other students much," Ms. Klein said. "She often seems distracted." I nodded, waiting for more, hoping there would be something positive. She's creative, though, she added, almost as an afterthought. Her artwork is expressive. That was the first time I smiled. Then came the line I didn't expect, the one that knocked the air right out of me. We assume her struggles come from a broken home. I didn't answer. Not because I agreed, but because I wasn't sure how to respond without sounding defensive or desperate. Mr. Harrow nodded slowly beside her, not looking at me, just staring at the papers in front of him like they confirmed everything. I wanted to tell them how hard I work, how many nights I skip dinner so Lena can have seconds, how I check her homework at 2 a.m. after my shift, even when my body feels like it might collapse, how we have inside jokes, silly dances, whispered stories under the covers. But none of that was on paper. None of that counted here. They didn't ask what Lena loves, what she dreams about, or how she still sleeps with the stuffed raccoon her dad gave her the day she was born. They didn't ask about the songs we sing in the car on our way to school, or the way she helps me knead dough on Sundays when we make bread for the neighbors. They just saw a tired woman in scrubs and a little girl who sometimes forgets her homework. That's when I realized how invisible love can be, how easy it is to miss the truth when you only look for the problems. I sat there, holding back the words I wanted to say, trying not to show how much they'd gotten under my skin. Then the door opened, and everything started to change. The door closed softly behind me after Lena walked in, but neither Ms. Klein nor Mr. Harrow acknowledged her. They were still focused on the conversation, as if she hadn't just entered the room. She stood near the coat rack, holding her backpack tight against her chest. "She shouldn't be in here right now," Ms. Klein said. "We're not done discussing her case." I looked at Lena. Her face was calm, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew something was off. "She's already here," I said. "Let her stay." Ms. Klein hesitated, clearly annoyed, but gave a short nod. Mr. Harrow said nothing. Lena sat down beside me and placed her backpack on the floor. Her eyes shifted between the adults in the room, waiting for someone to speak. Ms. Klein turned back to the folder. "As I was saying," she continued, her tone firmer now, "there are signs we can't ignore. Consistent tardiness, missed assignments, emotional withdrawal. It all points to instability at home." I clenched my hands in my lap. Lena was sitting right there, hearing every word. I wanted to tell them to stop, to remember she wasn't a file on a desk, but I stayed still. "We've dealt with this kind of situation before," she went on. "Children who come from single-parent homes often have difficulty with structure. It's not uncommon." Mr. Harrow finally looked up. "We're not placing blame. We're just trying to understand the environment she's coming from." "She's coming from a home where she's loved," I said, louder than I meant to. The room went quiet. Even Lena stopped fidgeting with the strap of her backpack. Ms. Klein glanced at Mr. Harrow, then back at me. "We're not questioning your intentions," she said, "but love doesn't always equal stability." My chest tightened. That word, stability, kept getting thrown around like it was something only certain families could offer. I wanted to ask what they meant by it. A husband in the house? A minivan in the driveway? A bank account with enough zeros? Lena tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, can I show you my project now?" she asked, her voice quiet but clear. Ms. Klein shifted in her seat. "This might not be the best time for that." I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were wide, not scared but hopeful. Whatever she had in that backpack meant something to her. I couldn't turn her away. "It's okay," I said. "Go ahead, baby." Lena bent down and unzipped her bag. She pulled out a thick construction paper folder, decorated with hand-drawn stars and little hearts. She held it to her chest like it was fragile, then opened it carefully and placed it on the table between us. "This is my safe place project," she said. "We were supposed to make something that shows where we feel most okay." Miss Klein opened her mouth to interrupt, but Mr. Harrow raised his hand slightly. For the first time, he looked directly at Lena. "Let her share it," he said. Lena turned the pages slowly. The first one showed a crayon drawing of our kitchen. She had drawn me in my apron, covered in flour, and herself standing on a chair next to me, both of us smiling. The caption in her careful handwriting said, "Me and Mom, baking on Sundays. It smells like love." The second page had a photo I didn't know she had, a snapshot of our hallway, where we had painted a mural together last summer. It was messy and colorful and full of animals and stars. Below it, she wrote, "We made the wall talk so it wouldn't be lonely." The third page had a drawing of her father. He had a big heart on his shirt and angel wings on his back. She had drawn herself, holding my hand while we looked up at him. The caption read, "Dad is in heaven, but we still talk to him sometimes when the house is quiet." Miss Klein blinked quickly and looked down at her lap. Mr. Harrow leaned in slightly, studying the page with a kind of stillness that hadn't been there before. Then Lena flipped to the last page. It was a picture of the two of us lying on the couch, tangled in blankets. The TV was on. She had drawn popcorn and our cat curled up between us. Underneath it, she had written, "My home is not broken. It's healing, and it's mine." Nobody spoke, not right away. That was the moment the room changed. The air, the posture, the judgment, all of it shifted. Slowly, but undeniably. They had come in prepared to explain why my daughter was falling behind. She had come in ready to show them why they were wrong. I watched Lena finish turning the pages of her project. She'd done it with care. Like each picture was a small part of herself, she was trusting the room to see clearly. The silence afterward felt heavier than anything that had been said earlier. Miss Klein sat back in her chair and crossed her arms. Her expression was unreadable, like she was trying to process something unexpected. Mr. Harrow didn't say a word. He just kept looking at the final page, eyes slightly narrowed, as if trying to understand a language he had never learned to read. Lena looked up at me. Her face wasn't worried. It was calm. She had done what she came in to do. I reached over and gently placed my hand over hers. Her small fingers curled around mine like they always did when she was about to fall asleep. I realized then that I wasn't angry anymore. Not with them. Not even with their assumptions. I was done feeling ashamed, done shrinking myself in rooms like this. She did all of this on her own, I said. She stayed after school every day this week to finish it with the art teacher. I didn't even know what she was working on. She didn't tell you? Mr. Harrow asked softly. No, I said. She said she wanted to surprise me. And she had. Not just with the drawings or the words, but with her courage. With her ability to walk into a space that wasn't kind to us and still offer it something honest and beautiful. This isn't just a school project to her, I continued. This is how she makes sense of the world, of the things she's lost and the things she still has. This is how she survives. Miss Klein cleared her throat. It's very touching, she said, her voice thinner now, like the authority behind it had started to fray. Mr. Harrow looked at her, then turned back to me. She's clearly processing a lot, he said, but in a way that shows real emotional intelligence. She's always been like that, I said. She notices things other people miss. She asks hard questions. She thinks about everything before she speaks. That can sometimes be misread as withdrawal, he said, almost to himself. I could tell the wheels were turning. His tone had softened. The way he looked at Lena now was different, less clinical. More human. Lena was quiet, still holding my hand. I looked at her again and felt something shift in me. For so long, I'd been waiting for someone to see her the way I do, but now I realized it had to start with me. I had to stop letting people define her through their limited view of our family. I work 2 jobs, I said. Some nights I barely sleep, but every morning I make sure she has breakfast and a smile to start the day with. I know I can't give her everything, but I give her everything I have. Neither of them interrupted me. Maybe they knew I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I didn't come here to defend myself, I said. I came here to listen and learn what she needs. But what I won't do is sit here and let you reduce her to a situation. She's not a case study. She's my daughter. Miss Klein looked down. Mr. Harrow leaned forward, elbows on the table. She's remarkable, he said. This project, it's something I think a lot of adults would struggle to create. You've done more than hold things together. You've created something solid in the middle of loss. That's not broken. That's strength. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But instead, I just nodded, because hearing someone finally say it out loud gave me a quiet kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Mr. Harrow looked at Lena. "Would you mind if I kept this project a little longer?" he asked. "I'd like to share it with some of the other staff, if that's all right with you." Lena looked up at me, and I gave her a small nod. "Okay," she said. "But you have to give it back." "I promise," he said. She smiled and closed the folder gently, pushing it toward him like it was a gift. That was the moment I understood that change doesn't always happen through confrontation. Sometimes it happens when you give people no choice but to see the truth right in front of them. And my daughter had just done that. Without raising her voice or asking for approval, she had walked into a room full of doubt and replaced it with something real. The folder sat on the table between us like something sacred. Lena had closed it carefully, as if she was tucking something away that mattered too much to be left exposed. Mr. Harrow placed his hand over it, gently, like he was afraid to damage what it represented. Ms. Klein still hadn't said much. She was looking at her notepad, but I could see she wasn't reading anything. She was somewhere else, probably working through her own discomfort. For the first time in this whole process, I wasn't the one on trial. The weight in the room had shifted. It wasn't on my shoulders anymore. Lena leaned into me slightly. I wrapped my arm around her and pulled her close, resting my hand on her back the way I always did when she was a baby and needed to sleep. I felt her exhale, slow and deep, like she was letting go of something heavy. "I didn't know she had this inside her," Miss Klein said finally, her voice low and more careful than before. "She's had it inside her all along," I replied. "You just weren't looking." It wasn't an accusation, it was a fact. Miss Klein didn't argue. She looked down, then nodded once. "I think we need to revisit how we've been evaluating Lena's progress," Mr. Harrow said. "There's clearly a disconnect between what we see on paper and what she's capable of emotionally and creatively." I didn't respond. I let him have his realization without interrupting. I had learned that people grow faster when you don't rush them. "She's not a problem to fix," I said after a moment. "She's a person to understand." "I see that now," Mr. Harrow said, "and I think others in this building need to see it too." He looked at Miss Klein when he said it. She met his eyes, then turned back to Lena. "You've done something very brave," she told her. "You shared your world with us when we didn't deserve it." "Thank you." Lena didn't smile. She just nodded. That was her way. She wasn't looking for praise. She only wanted to be seen. Mr. Harrow took a breath and looked at me. "I want to apologize," he said, "not just for what we assumed, but for how we allowed those assumptions to guide how we treated both of you." I nodded, not because it made everything better, but because it mattered that he said it in front of my daughter. "You can help her by not forgetting this moment," I said. "That's what matters." "I won't," he said. He paused, then added, "Would you be open to Lena sharing this project at the next staff development meeting? I think there's a lot we could learn from it, from her." Lena looked at me. "You don't have to," I said. "Only if you want to." "Can I read the pages out loud?" she asked. "If that's how you want to do it," I said, "yes." She nodded, more to herself than to us. Mr. Harrow stood and extended his hand across the table. I took it, surprised by how firm it felt. Not performative, not a formality. Real. "We're going to do better," he said. I didn't say thank you, not because I wasn't grateful, but because this wasn't a favor. This was what Lena deserved all along. We walked out of the classroom, down the empty hallway lit by motion sensor lights that clicked on ahead of us one by one. Lena held my hand, swinging our arms slightly like she used to when she was younger. As we stepped outside into the cool night air, I looked down at her. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Lighter," she said, "like I don't have to carry everything by myself anymore." We walked to the car without saying much else. She climbed into the back seat, pulling her jacket around her like a blanket. I sat for a moment before turning the key. I had gone into that meeting braced for judgment, prepared to defend the life we had built. I left knowing I didn't have to. Lena had already done it, not with anger, not with argument, but with the simple truth of who she is and how she sees the world. That room had changed because she had stepped into it and told her story, and nothing will ever be the same after that. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Lena was still asleep, curled up on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek. Sunlight poured through the window and landed across her face. She looked peaceful, untouched by the storm we had quietly weathered the night before. I walked into the kitchen and started the coffee. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt like something was missing. It felt whole in a way I hadn't noticed before. Later that week, Lena stood in front of a room full of teachers and staff during their professional development session. I sat in the back, near the door, not sure if I was more nervous or proud, probably both. She stood on a small platform holding her project in both hands. Her voice was steady as she read each page aloud. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. When she reached the part about her dad watching over us, I saw more than a few people wipe their eyes. Even Miss Klein looked away for a moment, blinking quickly. When she finished, the room was silent. Then, one by one, people began to clap. Not out of politeness, but with real feeling, the kind that comes from being changed by something unexpected. Afterward, teachers came up to her. Some asked questions, others just said thank you. One woman, a counselor from a neighboring school, told her she reminded her of her own daughter. Lena smiled politely and kept her answers short, but I could tell she felt proud. She had taken something private, something vulnerable, and turned it into something powerful. In the weeks that followed, things at school changed, slowly, but they did. Ms. Klein began sending home notes, not about what Lena did wrong, but what she had done well. She shared that Lena had started helping another student during art time, and that she had volunteered to read one of her own poems during class. Mr. Harrow called me personally to tell me the school had created a small student storytelling group and asked Lena to be part of it. He said her project had started conversations they should have been having a long time ago. Outside of school, things changed for us too. I stopped hiding how hard things were. I started talking more with other parents. Some of them had their own stories, their own quiet struggles. I found a small circle of people who didn't ask how I was doing just to be polite. They asked because they wanted to know, and I answered honestly. I also began leaving notes in Lena's lunchbox, small things, a doodle of a cat with a speech bubble that said, "You got this," or a short reminder, "You are seen, you are loved, always." One night, she left one on my pillow. It was just a scrap of paper torn from a notebook, but I've kept it folded in my wallet ever since. It said, "You make the broken things feel safe again." That's when I knew she understood not just what we had survived, but what we were building together. A home that didn't look perfect from the outside, but was full of light, strength, and effort. A home where nothing had to be hidden to be honored. People will still make assumptions. That won't stop. Some will look at me and see the tired face, the old car, the lack of a ring. They'll think they know the story. But I won't carry that weight anymore. I don't need to explain our love to anyone. Because I've seen what it can do. I've seen it turn silence into applause. I've seen it take a teacher's judgment and turn it into respect. I've seen it in the eyes of my daughter when she looks at me like I'm the one who taught her how to be brave, when, in truth, it's the other way around. Lena never needed me to protect her from the world. She just needed me to believe she could face it. Now, when I think about that meeting, I don't think about what was said. I think about what she created. What she carried into that room, what she gave them, without hesitation. They assumed our story was broken, but broken things don't shine the way she did. And from that day forward, I made a promise to never again let someone else tell us who we are. We already know. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone in your life who's been underestimated, share it. Send it to a parent, a teacher, a friend who needs to hear that they're not alone. Sometimes the quietest stories are the ones that change hearts. If you've ever had to fight to be seen, if you've ever been judged before you had the chance to speak, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. I read everyone. And if you believe in stories that show the strength inside ordinary people, real families, real love, real courage, like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you were here.